Greetings and welcome to Pop's Collection, where we dissect or reflect on a movie or TV show from my Pop's Collections. And today we're going to be continuing our thoughts and analysis of the Moon Knight series. We're now up to episode 4, and episode 4 is called The Tomb.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Yes, not in my collection.
Right.
I almost believe that I got to try to somehow get it in my collection, so I can watch it, maybe binge watch all 6 episodes at one time, and maybe get a better clarification of the story.
Okay.
But this one, The Tomb, I thought it was actually maybe the best episode so far.
That's exactly what I said. Ironically, the most interesting episode of Moon Knight is one where Moon Knight does not appear at all.
Exactly.
So
interesting. And also the ending of this, I convinced your mother to watch it with me.
Oh, okay.
But once we got to the ending, she was like, what?
Yeah.
Which I have to say that that ending part does remind me of another show, and I'll talk about that when we get to that far.
Okay.
But we kind of start off with a recap somewhat of, we know that Khonshu's now a figurine somewhat.
Yep.
And Mark, or was it Steven? I'm not sure, is passed out on the ground. So it's one of them.
Yeah, basically the idea is that after this Khonshu business is dealt with, that the deal would be that Steven would get control of the body back, and so that has happened. This is a Steven story that we're seeing, or at least this episode is, and Mark is the one that's in the reflections trying to regain control in order for us to get the power of Khonshu back, to rescue Khonshu from him being imprisoned in stone as he was at the end of last episode.
Right. And we do get a little bit of Mark in control, but not till towards the end of this episode.
That's right. Yeah.
I kind of thought it was interesting that Steven really came into form. He was like in his, area of expertise. He was doing something that probably he only dreamed of doing when he worked at the museum.
Well, he was talking about that particularly with Layla, and interestingly enough, Layla's father, we get a little bit more insight into who he was. I think it speaks to the reason why Layla is attracted to him in the first place, is because she kind of reminds her of her father. I think that's why we have that bit of attraction there, and it's strange because, again, Mark is the one that's supposed to be married to Layla, and it's almost as if Steven's trying to steal Layla away from him, even though they're the same body, which is interesting.
Right. But I still think that Layla is not really, she doesn't really believe that.
There is some doubt, I think.
Because she kind of really feels like Mark's just like trying to pull it over on her. She's not real sure that this character, Steven, is really somebody different.
Yeah. Although, given his expertise in, the Egyptian mythology, I don't think Mark shares the same level of knowledge that Steven has. And so that might lend a little bit more, credence that these are two separate, at least, personalities,
Well, also, we learned in this episode, or we get in this episode, that, we see more about Mark's being a mercenary.
Yeah.
So you've got two different characters, an archaeologist,
Yep.
somewhat, right,
Right.
with Steven, and you get the mercenary part, which we've kind of had more about Mark as far as his abilities and stuff than we have
Yeah.
about Steven. In this episode, we get to see more about Steven's abilities.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny too because one of the, I guess, dangers or risks that happened with Khonshu being imprisoned, that Mark says to Steven, is that you're going to lose your strength, you're going to lose your healing ability, and all that stuff like that. And ironically, Steven is the most heroic and brave and athletic we've seen in the entire series so far, which is kind of interesting.
oh yes, most definitely. And I kind of thought it was cool. Uh, we went from that point uh, where she's trying to revive Stephen,
Yep.
and there's a group. I'm going to say it's Harrow's army.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah, that's fair.
and they're shooting at him, and we get this whole thing with uh, Stephen still being unconscious, and Layla coming to the rescue of him.
Yep.
And then they, because of what happened in the previous episode, she was able to figure out where Amit's tomb was.
Yeah.
And so we kind of, I guess that was the pre story that kind of caught us up from the last episode.
Yeah.
And then after the, beginning, we wind up at this empty campsite where nobody's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, okay, where are we going to go from here? I mean, we had a whole campsite, a whole army of Harrow
Yeah.
there. What happened to him? So,
Yeah.
and we do find out what happens to him.
Right.
Which I have to say that the way that they were able to take the scenery and the stage sets to make it look like they were in a cave somewhere.
Right.
They did that really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely
caught myself believing
Yeah.
that that's where they were almost,
Yeah, you definitely got vibes of, Indiana Jones or The Mummy,
yes.
those films. And, it was well done, I have to say, definitely.
Yes, and I thought it was kind of interesting how that Stephen figured out that the tomb was a maze in the shape of the Eye of Horus.
Right, yeah, that was cool.
Right, which is Ra's brother. Right, they are brothers, Horus and Ra.
Sure.
And how that he figured out that the little circle at the bottom of the design was Horus's mouth.
Yeah.
Or it was the mouth of Amit.
Right, yeah. That's
something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get some other interesting makeup artists when we find some undead priests, Egyptian priests.
Is it makeup or is it CG? I think it might be CG.
It could be.
It looked CG to me.
Well, they did a really good job of that because when they take the regular actors and you see them getting pulled back and everything, they did it real well to whereas you really thought that they were getting pulled back. So it might have been a mixture of both on that.
Yeah.
But really interesting. We got some scenes where there's deep caverns and always when you're walking on little ledges, always the rocks break.
Right.
There's never a time that you go all the way across it and everything's fine.
Right.
And I don't know, when Layla gets captured
Hmm.
or gets taken by the priest, and she kind of gets away,
Yeah.
and then like they both go over the side.
Right.
It's like all of a sudden she's like right there climbing back up.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You
That
know?
I think that was an Indiana Jones thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
So I
Yes.
mean, there you go. Directly borrows a beat from there, which you
I'm
know,
like,
out of things you could pay homage to or rip off, you definitely choosing wisely if you're doing a film like that.
yes, definitely, because it was a high grade, definitely homage. It was a high grade movie, no
Yeah.
question.
Right.
Um, so they get to a tomb where they see this sarcophagus,
Right.
and Stephen, in his intelligence, is reading Macedonian
Yeah.
words there, and he comes to the conclusion that Alexander the Great was
Yeah.
Amit's avatar.
Yeah, which is interesting. It explains, I guess, a few things about history. The fact that, his success, I guess, in the Marvel universe at least, is due to supernatural powers, which is interesting.
Yeah, yes, yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, so again, we've gone through all this stuff while Stephen finds the tomb. Because we did have a situation where Layla was down below, Stephen was on another level, and one of the undead priests
Right.
was killing somebody or taking his insides and putting them in
Yeah.
little, canisters like
Yeah.
the
Presumably, it's
Egyptians.
one of Harrow's men. Presumably.
Yes, because for some reason the camp was empty when they got there, and
Right.
so it's, I guess the presumption is that these undead priests have attacked a lot of Harrow's men.
Right.
Although we do get to see a lot of Harrow's men, and we
Yep.
hear in the background, we hear a lot of machine gun fire.
Yep.
But as Layla gets up from her fight with the priest, she runs into Harrow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Harrow tells her this story, which the way he tells the story, I think that he's trying to manipulate Layla into not trusting Mark.
Right. Yeah, and it depends on when that actually happens. It could be that he was actually there. Like, if I were to theorize, I would say that Harrow's probably was the avatar of Khonshu at the time that Layla's father was killed. He was there, and then Mark was there as well. That's my theory.
Well, I think that's a good theory because when she finds Stephen, she asks to talk to Mark because she wants to confront Mark.
Yeah.
Because Harrow tells him that Mark's responsible for her father's murder.
Right. And at the same time, while that's happening, we have Stephen being victorious and retrieving the stone idol of Amit. So.
Right. Yes. Which he figures out is, since the little curly Q thing on the the Eye of Horus, that it's the mouth of Amit. So he opens up the sarcophagus and puts his hand down the mouth and comes up with the definite statuette, or they have a name for it, but I'll be darned if I can remember it. But he
the Ushabti, right? Is that what it's called?
Yes, that's it. Shopti. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I looked it up, so I didn't remember that. So anyway.
Okay, well, you're at least intelligent enough that you can look it up while I'm talking, so it's a good thing.
Sure.
Anyways, so while she was talking to Layla, Stephen was doing that, and they wind up in the same part of the tomb where Alexander the Great sarcophagus is.
Right.
And she wants to confront Mark about what's going on.
Right. And here's where we see Mark take over the body and kind of try to explain himself, saying that he witnessed her father's murder, but he did not participate in it, and he was shot as well. That's his claim.
Right.
Yeah.
He was claiming that he also was killed,
Yeah.
which we then somehow.
Well, he was shot, not necessarily killed. He was shot.
Well,
left for dead, he says.
He was left for dead, and Khonshu took over his body. He became Khonshu's avatar at that time.
He didn't say that.
All right. Well, maybe it was implied.
Like I said, I theorizing that's when it happened.
Yeah. Well, I would have to agree with that, because if he was left for dead,
Yeah.
you know.
And the fact that, you know, he wasn't open and honest with her about it from the get-go, that would have him being that involved obviously sets her off, and she's very upset. Which, funny enough, you know, as the Netflix series came to Disney Plus, we've been watching through them, and so that's basically the huge plot point in Jessica Jones season 1 between Jessica and Luke Cage. So it's funny. It's kind of like the same
Right.
thing.
Oh, you were actually up to Jessica Jones, huh?
No, we're up to Luke Cage season 1 now, so we're, you know, pretty.
Wow, you're going through them pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you know, I really did like them all, and after seeing them, especially Iron Fist for the third time, I grew to like it a little more than I did the first time.
Okay.
You know, so maybe the same will happen with you. You never know.
Yeah, we'll see.
But Mark's there,
mm-hmm.
but still, Khonshu's not around, so nobody has any powers.
Right.
And we get to a point where Harrow and his men come into the same part of the tomb, and they all surround him.
Yep.
And Layla somehow gets away, or she's into a little part of safety, but she sees Mark, and it looks like he's getting ready to fight them. And Harrow shoots him.
Right.
Twice.
Yeah.
And that's when the episode gets really, really weird.
Yeah.
If you want my opinion. But that is my opinion. And that is where the show reminded me of a Marvel series on FX called Legion.
Okay.
Which was kind of an X-Men thing.
Right.
But it was like a psychological thriller.
Sure.
The story would jump from him finding out his powers to being in a psychiatric ward back to somewhere else. Right. So when it popped to the psychiatric ward, and we saw, at that time it was Mark, because Mark was the last one that we saw in the body. And Layla was in the psychiatric ward. Other people in his life were in the psychiatric ward.
Yep.
Harrow's the doctor.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, now are we led to believe that every episode we've seen so far has all been in Mark's head?
Right.
You know, that's kind of where it seems like it's going from this point on.
Right.
But then again, his leg was strapped to the wheelchair, you know, so it was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, so that kind of goes with that ties in with that. But he somehow is still saying that he is who he is, and he escapes from Harrow,
right?
Dr. Harrow, at that time.
Yeah.
And he's going down a hallway, and he sees another sarcophagus. Yeah. And Steven's in that sarcophagus.
Right.
And so now they know each other, and they remember where they were at, and they got shot. And they're starting to go again.
Yeah.
And they see another sarcophagus shaking, but we don't know what's going on there.
Right.
All we know is that they're trying to get away, and the next thing we see is some giant hippopotamus
Yep.
saying, "Hi."
Yeah.
Ah, end
Yep.
of episode.
Right.
So, what? So, do you have any insight into who that hippopotamus is?
Well, I did do a cursory bit of research, and so the god is Amit actually is a composite of three different animals. So uh, one third, or the head, I think, is a crocodile. The front quarters are a lion, and the hind quarters are hippopotamus. So Amit is part hippopotamus, but not the head.
But not the head.
No, but there is another goddess that it does have has a hippo head, which is Tarit. So that's it could be Tarit, which is
Okay.
I don't know if she was on the Council of the Gods or not. I don't remember. In fact, I can look back probably, but um,
Well, when we get to the wrap up, the final episode, we
yeah,
can kind of see if everything, if it all ties in. And who
yeah,
knows, maybe in Moon Knight episode 5, which
yeah,
is named TVA for now,
hmm
maybe that we'll have the tie-in at that episode.
probably. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that's it. So it could be a form of Ahmed actually, or it could be this Tariq.
Tyree.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that ought to be interesting to see how that works out. Um, yeah, so your impressions, uh, do you also agree that this was the best episode so far?
Yeah, in my opinion, it is. I mean, it's action packed. We really, like I said, you get vibes of a lot of other classic films from
Yes.
before, and you get a good amount of story, and it ends on a pretty interesting a cliffhanger. You know.
Yes, and I think if you would have seen Legion, that you probably would have got the same
Hmm.
vibe that I did when you
Sure.
got to the end of that.
Sure.
Because that was technically, that's the way the first episode of season 1 of that ended,
Okay.
was kind of the same way this one ended. So,
Cool. Cool.
so I'm getting a little more excited about it. And I also found out that actually Marvel was going to attempt in the early 2000s, after the success of the Blade movies, they did have a Blade TV series on
Yes.
a channel called Spike.
Right.
And it only made it one season,
Right.
but
Right.
they had scheduled to have Moon Knight in season 2,
Oh, okay.
and they were going to break off and have a TV series then.
Interesting.
So, but it never came to fruition because season 2 of that TV series never went off, which
Right.
I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't a bad series.
Yeah.
Not as good as the movies. The rapper that played Blade in that was uh, pretty close to the Wesley Snipes version, but not as good.
Okay.
But it was a good. Actually, they had a made-for-TV movie, that, like a pilot that they did, that was really, really good.
Hmm.
So, TV series unfortunately didn't make it as well. But I thought that would, I guess we've discussed that Moon Knight and Blade and some
Yeah.
other characters being like an Avengers group.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that if they're going to make a connection to anything else in the MCU, it's probably going to be Blade. I'll probably introduce Blade in this as well, if I had to guess. The only other thing I could think of is, some people have theorized that this is a multiverse thing, so that would be another angle that could play up. And like Hawkeye was kind of right in between the Spider-Man movie, where we had both the introduction of two folks from the Netflix verse. It might be the similar thing here, where they do something on multiverse side of things.
you mean from the well, yeah, because again, with the last Spider-Man movie, we got Wanda at the end of that, in the teaser part. Do you remember that?
Nope, I don't. I just saw it too, but I don't remember
Right?
waiting till the very end. I guess I didn't wait till the very end.
No, you might have not
No, I
because
didn't. I didn't because yeah,
we got Stephen Strange meeting her in the field. If you remember when
okay,
the
yeah,
WandaVision thing
yep,
was
yep, yep,
over,
yep, 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 yep. Okay, got it.
now you remember. So I guess it would be possible. I mean, DC came up with a uh, Dark Justice League Dark,
Okay,
which was like their spiritual characters
okay.
that they have, like Constantine and
Hmm.
oh gosh, I'm trying to remember now. It was just they have some characters that are kind of, I guess, supposed to be equal to Marvel's Doctor Strange and what have you. Oh yeah,
Was it
Doctor Fate.
Satana? Right.
Yeah, Satana. Right. Yes.
That's the only thing I
So
know. I can't. Don't quiz me on any of that other stuff.
no, there's a guy that is a character that turns into a demon.
Okay,
I can't remember his name right now, but it's like a Justice League
sure.
with all these
Mystic Justice League.
mysticals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe they'll have something like that with Moon Knight, Blade,
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. I mean, because there are, oh, and maybe Morbius would be a part of it. Quite possible. I know you haven't seen the Morbius movie.
I don't think anybody's seen Morbius.
I I really need to look on there and see how it did the first weekend, just for grins, because to me it was a movie I wasn't going to go to the theater to see.
No, it's funny because now I think Jared Leto has the dubious distinction of being in both the worst Marvel and the worst DC movie. So
Yeah, that's true.
actually, I disagree. I don't think that Suicide Squad is the worst DC movie, not even by a long shot. But anyway, that's another conversation.
We're gonna go. I know your thought.
Yeah,
Birds of Prey.
yeah, that's the worst DC movie ever.
Yes. Well, only because they made it about Harley Quinn, but we're not going to go there.
No, it's not even about that. But yeah, we'll listen to our episode about that, and you'll hear the thoughts about that. But yeah,
Right, but we've already had that episode.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So listeners, if you want to know what we think about it, go back to listen to the episode. Be done.
That's correct. Yes.
We're not rehashing that.
Okay, so episode 5. What's going to happen? Will we get more than a talking hippo?
Probably.
Yeah. All right. Shades of Peter Potamus.
All right.
Not a character but you'll have to look it up.
Must be another DC character.
No, not at all. It's a Hanna-Barbera character.
Oh, okay. Never mind. All right. Let's kill it there. All right. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week with episode 5 of Moon Knight. And until then, goodbye. God bless.
Goodbye. God bless and tell your friends.